table this time around. That's going to be the big one. Do they want to prioritize
I completely trolled that. Yeah,
it was the Sejuani. Sejuani was the one adaptation, which I understand why. They love Skarner.
Yes, and now there's no slot that can match that in theory, because I was mentioning that the Skarner Sejuani fill similar slots.
Yeah.
So now they're the ones with, in theory, the tank engaged jungler, but you can still go with Vi, you can go with
like
the power farmer.
is on paper good, right? Like, obviously it depends. You highlighted it very well in our first series on, you don't want to pick Jarvan too early because he's dependent on the enemy team having these more immobile carries, but clear that Yone is not considered a threat, which is a very unique read, unique to PSG. We'll see if any other teams have the same opinion, but I mean, it was banned in our first series and is very highly rated by pundits around the globe. The Rumble.
Yeah. I mean, interesting how there seems to be such wildly different reads, even just between the two series, because, and I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to the meta, as I'm sure a lot of people are curious. Like, Yone in the first series was second phased banned in game 1, and then fell completely through the draft in game 2. PSG isn't willing to ban or first pick it, yet it's locked right away for paiN both games very early on. And I think the Rumble is maybe more of a denial pick.
Okay. Akali picked up. I assume that immediately that this is going to be for Maple. Has a lot of positive interactions. The Yone can obviously follow the snapback on the Soul Unbound. A lot of kill pressure onto any potential backline carry threats, and the Gnar coming in too. So the Akali, a bit more spice here coming into the draft. Meanwhile, the Gnar as well as the Skarner, stable, I think it's safe to say. Pretty conventional, safe blind options. Or in this case, the Gnar coming into the Rumble, so probably more likely a counter.
It is looking a little scary to me, honestly. I didn't expect to see Akali this early, but since they do know the two matchups that it will be up against, if Maple can get ahead, he would be able to control side lanes with that Akali. So jungle and both solo lanes locked in early in this one. And I mean, Drakos, this is not what I expected. I was thinking mages, we're gonna see Syndra, Orianna, maybe some Ahri, not just like Yone Akali slammed right here in game 4 of Worlds.
They buff their items, they buff some of their numbers. It's just not enough.
But it's not like Akali's shown her face for months.
No, I mean, it's just been a popular pick in solo queue, but she kind of always is, right? And this is a champion who, you know, in the right circumstances, in a decent lane matchup, can do really well. But I guess a lot of the sustain nerfs targeted range champions kind of left, you know, something like Fleet Footwork in a much better spot for melee champions. Perhaps allows her to weather the storm in a melee v melee matchup. Not something I've seen in mid in, I feel like, years. I'm trying to think back. All I can think about is Silas Akali meta. But
yeah, something like that.
It's going to be volatile.
Sure I mean, Garen versus Nasus was very recent.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I just blocked that out of my memory because I hated that so much.
Slightly different style.
Yeah, it doesn't hit the same, I think it's safe to say. But Ban's now coming through. Okay, so again, respect Ban, Lucian taken out of the equation. Now it's the Ezreal. Not quite the same reliable sustained damage output, but as long as she's hitting those Qs, it's going to work out. And PSG, again, I feel like they're very comfortable just putting Betty in this position if they do lock this MF. To just kind of be reliable with the ultis, bit of a safe pick, obviously pretty decent matchup. She can usually get push.
It's hard.
Jhin instead.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not a good MF angle. There's no one to set up the misfortune other than like a really crazy lucky Gnar ultimate into the MF ult. So the timing would have been, to me, almost impossible to do. And their solo lanes really lack utility, so you need to slam as much utility as possible in your bot lane, which is when Jhin becomes a really good pick. So I do actually really like that they pivoted there from MF to Jhin.
It also frees up Maple and Azhi to just get aggressive, get in the fight if they need to, right? Jhin can kind of be left on the back line, doesn't have to worry about too much. But if this Bard does get locked in, will really punish an immobile champion like the Jhin Vi on the enemy side.
Ooh.
Also a threat that'll have to be reckoned with, the ability to lock down some of these more mobile champs.
Is this a good Braum angle? I'm trying to think. It's locked in, so it better be for paiN. Rell Braum is okay. So the lane is fine. I'm just trying to think about the rest of the champions. 3 people have to go in. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah. I think that the two strengths of Braum, right, are mitigating AD carry impact and making any diver's life a living hell. Because concussive blows, you can't outplay it. So many things in this game you can dance around, but if Braum auto attacks you once, you will eventually be stunned, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
So Some good angles. Obviously does limit a lot of their upfront engage, but because they have the Yone and the Vi, they're feeling a little bit more confident. And Kuri, remember in the previous game on the Nami, spent most of the game kind of just using ult to stop Betty from ulting, for stop Betty's effectiveness in those fights. So it's not like they were reliant on having that utility in game 1, although a bit less CC coming in from Wizer could hurt them in some of the setups.
And again, it's not a graphical bug you see on your screen if you're just joining us. That is 1 win for paiN and 0 wins for PSG, which I really didn't expect.
That person has a sign. That person expected it.
I mean, the CB LoL was winless last year at Worlds and was 1-4 before being eliminated from MSI.
I'm telling you,
had played throughout all of Summer Split. And then here in game 2, the Akali Gnar, you really have to get ahead in your solo lanes if you want to play macro. And if they fall behind, their teamfight options are extremely limited into the Braum Rumble. So paiN, if they can display the type of play and the type of patience they had in game 1, we could be looking at paiN moving on higher in the upper bracket here in the play-ins.
And I look at the mid lane matchup, right, and Grasp really strong in the context of the 1v1. Electrocute good for bursting other champions, but Yone already has a bit of CC and shielding built into the kit, builds lifesteal naturally in most matchups, and it just feels like a matchup where Maple really has to outplay to find greater advantage or get support to get him out of this lane to attack a more vulnerable target. But the more vulnerable target is an Ezreal who has that mobility, is a Rumble who in melee range can match your damage output. So it is a tough game for Maple and for PSG. They obviously need to mount that comeback, and they just have to execute, I think, so much better.
They absolutely do. No lane swap here again in game 2. Neither team has necessarily a champion that you'd think would really excel in lane swap. It's not a Cassante or Jinx.
Level 1 Rumble, level 1 Gnar, they do not survive anything. But of course, while we're getting this game started, remember to log into your Riot account and on lolesports.com and watch Worlds live during exclusive Worlds emotes, icons, and capsules. You're already watching if you're here. I know you are, because otherwise you wouldn't hear this message. So just get free stuff while you do it. Nice and easy, simple. You have a second, because no one's killing each other yet.
And they might not for a while, Drakos.
Okay, last game, we were very comfortable in this position of no one's ever going to fight ever, and then instant Sejuani ult, someone died, paiN Gaming won. That's how I remember it.
That's the craziest thing about game 1 is I was thinking that no one is going to die and then PSG will win. But it ended up being no one will die except for PSG, and paiN will win easily in a landslide.
Yeah, and you can see paiN taking control of that early lane. The E forward from G2, love to see it. Obviously, it can be a bit of a meme how aggressive he was willing to play on this Ezreal, but good leverage of their 2v2 laning strength.
I mean, they can play as aggressive as they want. The jungler's on the other side of the map. I don't know how confident they would be exactly in that read, but they're just going to, make sure they're last hitting all these cannons under the wave and just keep pushing them back. Vi's in a comfortable spot. It looks like Yone getting some decent trades off onto the Akali, even though that electrocute does pop when it hits.
Yeah, of course, trying to predict Akali's position with the Q3 ultimately whiffs means Maple just gets to walk up and take that trade for free. I think JunJia got the Grasp proc, so overall a bit unfortunate. Still gets the wave forward at least a little bit, but now Maple's in a pretty comfortable position just to try to zone him away from at least getting the CS, even if he can't stop the XP.
Yep, got some nice information though when he checked the Raptors. He didn't ward, but it did give the bot lane confidence they can stay pushed up in that bottom lane.
JunJia.
So I'm really curious where the mental of these teams are going to be, because even though paiN did really slam that first game, there were a lot of moments where we're thinking, okay, PSG is 1,000 gold up, now they're 2,000 gold up, pretty much just from laning and slightly more efficient jungle pathing. But I wonder if now paiN has like a little bit more mojo and confidence, and they're going to be contesting more of these waves and laning almost a little bit like more bravely.
PSG, nice knockback to the wall. JunJia, immediate bit of upfront damage, forcing the flash out from Wizer. Of course, the repeat gank is where it's going to get a very scary. Narsix as well can be quite potent. They're laying down the ward just to make sure he's not going to get re-ganked here.
Yeah.
The way looks like set up to push away from him, so it could put him in a tricky spot.
Exactly. He has his teleport, but he's going to wait for Vi to cover most likely, maybe shove out that wave and then recall, in which case he'll be completely fine. That electrocute getting a lot of value here early from Maple.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how many procs have come through on the grass, but Maple really smartly avoiding these short trades and just slowly whittling JunJia down. He doesn't really have the stats to tank that upfront damage early on. So well played thus far by Maple. Woody now here as well. Looks like just wants to help him shove out. Of course, Kuri is ready to match, but I think the burst potential of the 2v2 makes this a bit difficult for Maple. He wants to go back in, but now Cheaton has shown his face as well.
Okay.
It's not a 2v2, buddy. That's a 3v2. Luckily for them, however, Maple has the Shroud, just walks away. Woody able to W out that crash down, taking him to safety, so not too much lost. Does give a bit of free time for Betty to catch a few more minions.
Yeah. Small victories there for PSG, even though it looked like it was a bait by paiN. Since they don't get a kill, that investment gives Yone some free time, or sorry, Jhin some free time on the bot lane. You can see CS leads are starting to accumulate a little bit for PSG.
Starting to check. Control of that bush, of course, crucial for being able to push forward and topside. As long as you have vision and try, you can feel relatively safe to step up. PSG don't have that vision reliably, but they do have a trap, which is at least a little bit of protection to deny that vision from the side of paiN Gaming. JunJia, that ward will spot him. TP back to mid lane. Maple, of course, using his as well. Hextech Alternator going to feel like a fantastic early purchase as we have a bit of an all-in on the bottom side. Cheaton again, eing forward. No concussive blows marking up Betty is big. The body block is there, but Woody getting stunned up means a bit more poke in his favor. The Deadly Flourish doing some damage back as Cheaton gets lower and lower. Have to be careful of giving Jhin access to this forced shot, but credit to paiN Gaming just stepping up, taking these big chunks out of health bars, popping a couple biscuits, and keeping the pressure on.
Their Braum Ezreal is different. Like, they're extremely aggressive, basically waiting out the aftershock on Woody before proccing the end of the Braum Q, getting as much damage down onto Betty, then also onto Woody, and that buys them space to move towards this Drake. With that being said, the Skarner is very obviously top lane as well, and it's similar story to game one where paiN is going to take the early Drake, they're going to give away the early grubs, and we know how that one turned out. They stacked the soul and managed to win the game, so paiN's going to be very happy taking this trade one more time.
So Maple doing pretty well, and the isolated 1v1 means might be able to leverage that grub buff a bit more on a side lane. If he finds a lead, should be favored in the 1v1 over both the Rumble and the Yone.
He's still got ult on Akali.
I mean, 61 to 43 CS, he's doing very well, and you can see JunJia forced it back at a time where he really couldn't complete an item. And the awkward thing for Yone, right, is you want Berserker's Greaves. It's such a good first item purchase, but oftentimes in lanes like this, you feel like just getting the early MR out of Mercs, the extra movement speed helps so much more.
Yeah, he's going to be really delayed, and this could be a kill.
Lockdown there, Wizer in trouble, but the initial damage coming in for the Rumble is massive. Over the wall is the buy, trying to finish it. Wizer still living! He's still alive. JunJia wants to fall, but the shield is now coming through! He's overheating. Gnar, Azhi holding on. First blood, they managed to finish the kill. Now trying to get out the Q round, trying to get closer to Azhi. One more sec. No, the deadly blow's not enough. Desperate to finish the kill. Oh, God, a game! Not even inches, centimeters, millimeters, decimeters, but PSG come out on top.
Game of pixels. I can't believe that Rumble ticked out at the end of that, and then also Azhi getting Mega at exactly the right time to make this a 2-for-0. That's the type of disaster play you can't have happen when you're already soft losing lanes, because now you look up at the scoreboard and they are substantially down in this game. Let's watch it one more time. So it's basically blind checking on top of this control ward. Skarner just goes in, gets the slam, and there's a 5 bot 2.
Body block there, ready for Cheaton. But you highlight it now. Level 6 coming through. PSG pressuring the bottom lane, knowing they were in the isolated 2v2, seeing so many members top, giving a lot more access to push in, and now mashing up the plates, and even a small gold lead for Betty, despite the early aggression coming out of Cheaton and Kuri. And this is rough, because while the Gnar only has a 400 gold lead, Skarner very ahead of the clock. And while I wasn't as jazzed about Heartsteel in the previous game, when you have a lead, that item is incredibly powerful.
It absolutely is. Maple also continuing to extend his lead 1v1 against the Yone. So far, this Akali pick, which is a little bit of a head scratcher to see at first, looking very well piloted in this Yone versus Akali matchup, not only forcing the Yone into an early null magic, just so heavily delaying his power spikes, but then also being, 20 CS up with the wave pushing into him. He's just really putting on a master class so far in this lane.
What do you hear? JunJia here. Skarner not going to provide too much threat, but will dissuade any further action as JunJia just consistently forced to use the Soul Unbound to pick up bits of CS, pick up extra bits of gold. A single Shuriken flip landing at this health state could be a death sentence, could finish the job. Cariok trying to control, and paiN Gaming rapidly losing control of the map. This game, similar discipline in the first few minutes from PSG, but now actually finding success on that top side and those kills has put them in a much better state in terms of map control. As now, lockdown coming in, Q flash forward, Cheaton cleansing out to safety. Arcane Shift will keep him standing, but good to get that summoner spell. It does cost Woody his flash, however.
Yeah, so I mean, even though Braum Ezreal played some trades aggressively and occasionally got push, the Gnar is consistently pushed in Wizer's Rumble, and then Maple's Akali has consistently got push in mid lane. So it's 2.5 to 3 winning lanes for PSG, and that's just one of the reasons this game is looking so one-sided at the moment. It's just extremely hard for paiN to actually make plays when you have 3 lanes pushing against you, because it means you can almost never get deep vision. You're almost never feeling confident in your ability to win a 2v2 or a 3v3 when your jungler's there, just since you're not going to have vision on the enemy jungler. And if the other team is pushed up in lane, they're likely stronger as an individual, and you'll lose that fight. So that's one of the reasons I feel like paiN is sitting on 0 kills and the gold deficit, on top of the little bit of a disaster that happened in the top lane.
Yeah, and I feel bad for JunJia. Yone players out there, you know the importance of these first item spikes, of finishing something like Blade of the Rune King or a crit item, something that has, you know, attack speed and crit chance together, or just attack speed, because it's effectively also CDR, you're getting double value, but Hexdrinker has no double value stats for Yone. That is a purchase of necessity in a matchup that has been so Maple favored thus far, and means that while he'll still get value out of the knockup and the ult and fights, his net damage output is so much lower than it would be with any other item. Because now you can see Maple just threatening Cheaton in the picture-in-picture there. It's paiN Gaming determined to set up for grubs. It'll only take PSG getting 1 to get them the might spawn. As JunJia starting to speed forward, finds the initial CC, the initial knockup. Ulti now coming back to Kuri. They've locked up 2 members, but a JunJia off to the side, hoping to bring it back. Braum Unbreakable does a little bit of work. Wizer doing a lot of damage down, and paiN Gaming might just be better in the fight. Woody getting caught up, but they want a little bit more. Betty locked up. Maple not quite able to hit on the shuriken flip. Azhi coming in though, and he's just untouched. The Gnar ready to take over, but he needs to start stacking rage, but he's just tired. He has the debuff on, he can't stack anything. Finally now getting it. Cheaton standing behind. JunJia ready to take over. He might not even need another item. Q3 there. Maple trying to finish. Captive audience not going to hit. Bloodbath on the top side of the map, and still only a single grub taken down.
3-4-3, and the teleport gets burned by Azhi's Gnar. That's exactly the type of fight you want to happen if you are paiN, since you are getting pushed in every single lane. If you actually have the opportunity to have a scrap like that, you're going to take it. And I feel like the Yone's get out of jail free there after completing the Hexdrinker, getting 2 kills to get back on track. And this is kind of like game 1 where paiN end up just out fighting them. So despite the 3-man Skarner ultimate, it's not comboed with anything. It's on top of the enemy Rumble ult, so he ends up getting chunked fairly low to begin with. And then Azhi had Mega on the turret at the start of this fight, so is exhausted by the time he teleports in, and then is unable to make a large impact before falling to the Yone.
And while Maple's in a decent position, he just cannot finish these kills off. JunJia, the edge, the shuriken flip not hissing. paiN Gaming able to grab the dragon in the meantime.
Oh boy.
And you look back for paiN Gaming, right? This is an organization that has an incredible history in the context of the CB LoL, but Maple alone is a man who has enough history to match just about any organization. 2013, you talked about it earlier, debuting against Faker on the international stage.
Really incredible. 12 years to the day was his world's debut. Trying to make a deep run here. It has to start here with a win against paiN after they drop game 1. Still in a relatively comfortable position, but I think definitely a lot sweatier than it was 2 minutes ago. Now that the second Drake has gone over to paiN, knowing how they won the first game by stacking Drakes.
And honestly, Maple's been that clutch guy for so many different lineups or so many different names. Have to be that again. Here's Wizer getting picked off. Azhi looking to carry some of that burden himself, as Azhi cannot even lane. Cheaton on the way down, only level 8. Not the most comfortable position to be in.
I mean, if they bring Vi as well, they might be able to burst him out, but most likely it's just to save Rumble. Wizer had such a good game 1 on Jax, struggling a bit here on the Rumble, which they early picked. He's hunting though.
Going in. Azhi just really not under enough threat there. Woody able to back him up, and Cheaton, of course, already heading back to the mid wave to try and catch that one. Right now, things feel pretty good for the side of PSG. Of course, you highlighted Yone, a little bit of a get out of jail free. Isn't able to complete another item, but getting the recurve, getting the boots too, means that his 1v1 in his side lane, at least he'll be able to push pretty reliably. But right now, JunJia just shows up to deny any potential of him defending that tier 1.
And there's a lot of standing gold here for PSG that they're looking to collect. They can get this top turret for Maple, really continue to accelerate him in the game. And if they can also kind of slow play this bot lane and get 2 outer turrets with really no retaliation possible, it's going to likely blow open a lot more of this game. No one can step up to Maple right now. with that Storm Surge being completed. He's just going to one-shot them.
It's such an infuriating item to play against because he hits the initial chunk. You're like, all right, I've lost the start of the trade, and now he's Sonic the Hedgehog, and there's no chance in hell I'm ever getting away from him. That feels good. Cariok, though, looking for a play on the bot side. Respect that PNG are consistently looking for these angles, but you can see in the MasterCard lane economy snapshot that the economy not favoring them right now.
I don't think they can do anything at this turret, actually.
Q flash, JunJia on the way in. A lot of base damage coming in strong there. Now she's just taking his time. Doesn't even have Mega yet. Just continues to autos, gets those hyper procs, and they'll finish off Wizer here in the bottom lane.
Yeah, I mean, overstay there by paiN. Once they shoved the wave in, they needed to get out of there. Ezreal had already left, so good on Woody for just immediately snap engaging to get that kill and extend the lead of PSG.
Cheaton taking a bit of an aggressive recall there. Betty not going to spot him, so we'll be able to return, but is going to have first push on this mid wave. Herald still alive. Got resets coming in. This is something that they could look for on the map. Might instead opt to contest paiN here, but Betty overstaying mid lane.
Has flash barrier, didn't have to use any.
Yeah. Very close there, but I think the damage portion of this paiN gaming lineup just was not in a good enough position that Cariok wanted to follow up with the ultimate. But JunJia in a pretty good spot. That Braum is in trouble. Cheaton maybe can offer him a way to get out. Immediate ulti coming through, sidestep by all three members of PSG. Cheaton in the midst of the enemy team. JunJia, Q3 ready to go. But Maple behind him, he's going to snap back. Maple's immediately going to be on top of him. The short flip misses, however. A little bit tragic as Azhi TP's in. Not to a lot of effect here, but was ready just in case the fight did break out.
Looking like a bounce-back game for paiN, though. Not only do they win that small skirmish with the Braum kill, all pressure that paiN may have been able to develop evaporated as they all kind of collapsed mid lane anyway and still didn't win the fight. So you can see the side lanes there. Rumble completely pushed in. Maple's Akali up top lane, catching a wave, uncontested. This gold lead is only moving in one direction, and it's more in the favor of PSG.
Yeah, and if that is a Shadow Flame second, like we're looking at double buffed items for Maple. That threshold being a little bit higher means those magic damage crits coming a little sooner, and life starts to get miserable, even for the Vi, right? Who's a champion who's built a few more of those bruiser items. You get enough magic pen coming through, and suddenly he's vulnerable as well. Has to be a bit more careful about trying to fish for those plays. 37 seconds and counting. The next Drake will be up. In the previous game, Infernal did so much work for paiN. Getting that third Drake felt like the beginning of the end for PSG. Have to see if they can get something here in a much less favorable circumstance.
Absolutely. It's a very difficult Drake for them to secure, but at the same time, if they do somehow win a fight 5,000 gold down, they would be in a decent spot in the series. I just really don't see it. This seems like such a big bounce-back game for PSG as long as they stay together and coordinated. Keep pushing up the bot lane. Azhi has full ability to push back the Gnar. They have a ward in the jungle, seeing him up there, and they should be able to pick up this Drake pretty easily.
They're weaker in most fights, and also they can suddenly find a man advantage and burst out a single target. They just don't really have the tools. Maple looking for the 1v1 off to the side. We'll at least get the ulti out of JunJia. Can just continue to push that tier 2. It's going to force the recall from the Yone, but Maple instead might just reset and be ready to TP if he needs to. paiN Gaming looking to kick this fight off.
Yeah, they just want to flip it.
Lockdown there onto Cariok. Should just be an immediate kill onto the Vi. Excellent follow-up coming as well from the Gnar. And now Woody trying to disrupt the rest of the fight. JunJia in the midst of the fight, but he does not have the ulti. Q3 going to be taken out to safety. PSG striking back in this game too. It was already a 5K gold lead, and it is only getting bigger as Cheaton left alone to defend this tower, but Maple is here ready to threaten.
Full control, 5 grubs, going to be able to take more turrets down quickly. Still leaving that poor Skarner to kill the Drake all on his own, but it's kind of more what I expected from PSG coming into this World Championship, where these fights don't feel super climactic, but it's because they always have pressure somewhere, and paiN can never feel like they're in the right spot. So you could see paiN really wanted to contest that Drake, but they didn't have any waves pushed, they had poor vision, and they just didn't have a good entry into the fight. So well played here by PSG through the majority of this game too.
Yeah, it's incredibly hard for paiN to navigate out of this situation, right? You got Maple, who's so much stronger on a side lane. That isn't going to change anytime soon. The play of the Rune King being done now feels good, certainly in the context of a greater team fight, but in the isolated 1v1, you're not going to be able to hit Akali with that many autos before she's hit you with enough damage to finish the job, especially with Hexdrinker currently on cooldown.
Yep. It's a 2,000 gold lead for Maple. It is a 2,000 gold lead for Azhi, and it's only a 500 gold lead for Betty, but he's the Jhin. He's just helping. Throws a W from far away, puts his ult up. That's all he needs to do.
The nice thing about having CC is, like, even if you have no money, if anyone else on your team has money and you hit some CC,
it still works.
you've done your job.
Yeah.
Someone has damage, doesn't have to be you. So it's a good look for the side of PSG, but again, I think they're in a position where they don't really need to force anything. They can just continue to slowly extend their lead. Very likely that Baron will be on the table soon for them. They are a pretty terrible Baron-taking team, though, admittedly. None of these champions well-equipped for that particular challenge. If Mini Gnar could stay Mini forever, it'd feel a little bit better, but he cannot.
They also can't win through Soul, but they can win through just killing all of paiN and then killing the Nexus. I think that's going to be the strategy they take.
Yeah. Q3 on the JunJia does not do much damage. The Skarner felt lackluster in the previous game in the face of the Sejuani, but in this game where he's so tanky and so far ahead, very hard for them to delete him, but not quite going to be the catcher cards as Woody's in the midst of the entire team. Cariok now trying to retreat. Maple, big damage coming in from that Storm Surge. Ulti coming through as well, interrupting the Fate Sealed from JunJia. The curtain call won't quite finish up Kuri, and now PSG can take their sweet time if they do want to start at that Baron.
They can think about it, but I still think their Baron damage is so low that, yeah, they're just going to decide to recall. Gold lead getting bigger and bigger. They're going to win every skirmish. I can definitely see the other side of this where people are saying, like, why does paiN fight that? It's because they have literally nothing else to do. Like, their entire jungle is getting taken away from them. There's only 1 or 2 waves that they can actually touch. Like, you do need to actually get gold at some point in League of Legends, but in retrospect, it looks really foolish that they go for this fight down 7,000 gold in their own red buff, but they're just trying to protect their own resources. The fight itself, Maple gets a little bit low, but ultimately just able to execute the Yone, and they walk away with a pretty easy 2 for 0.
Yeah, and they have the advantage in push, in vision, in gold. That means the amount of options. Similar to in our first series in that second game, right? You just, any attempt you have to make a play is always just going to be high risk. paiN not afraid to take those risks.
PSG wants, I think they're willing to dive these side lanes if they find the right look, but if they don't, they still have 5 grubs. They get the majority of the turret every time they move up with a wave, and it's just a matter of time until they extend the gold lead.
paiN Gaming hoping maybe that a member of PSG will be caught out. Really, the only member who could be vulnerable would be Betty, but he's always so far back that there's not much risk.
Yeah, and now that they've killed this bot turret, you can see they moved through the jungle. Next, they're going to push up the mid wave. They'll get vision here, and that's kind of going to be the next objective up in the top lane. It's really procedural what they're doing here in this game to extend this lead, and if at any point, since they're staying connected enough, if at any point paiN does end up going for a fight, it's going to be a losing fight because they're not going to be in the defense of their turret, and they're down so much gold. Definitely.
JunJia now completing the Sterix as well. A bit more tenacity, massive shield. So whatever hope they had in the previous fight of picking him off is dwindling away quickly. PSG, you can see this first push gets them vision. The next wave they push likely to get them a bit more. And over time, paiN going to be pushed further and further back. Unless they do want to go for some sort of fast play where they fish, like the previous play, for some sort of pick, some sort of aggressive move. But they'll always be doing it at a gold and vision disadvantage as JunJia starting things off. Suppression there, stopping Rumble from ulting. Wizer in trouble. Will he get anything else done? Desperation ult to little effect, and that's the risk of stepping up into territory you do not control. Yeah, I'm just trying to hold a little bit, make sure Baron isn't getting started, although it's going to take about 45 seconds for PSG to kill Baron if they started it. But this is the plan that we thought PSG would have. They push mid wave, they get a pick, they move towards top wave. 3 lanes of pressure.
More damage.
JunJia forced to go back. Q3, immediate ulti. By there to body block, crucially. Or it would have just been a kill. But now another tier 2 falling. Gnar already splitting in the bottom lane. Someone needs to match, but Yone needs to go back to base, which makes everything so damn tricky. A bit of poke onto JunJia maybe slows the Baron, but again, Baron probably not their priority with this particular composition. Is now maybe. Desperation pick on the side lane. Can they take out the Gnar? JunJia on the way in. Woody here to cover as well. Azhi waiting for the ulti, waiting for the perfect time. Flash in, massive engage. Azhi still standing. Knock back on 2-3. Doesn't have to throw them into the wall. Doesn't think he has the range, but Maple is there. And Maple has more than enough damage to do the work himself. Maple and Betty just cleaning up. Cheetah, the last man standing.
I think that's probably going to do it. PSG with a dominant game 2 here, only 24 minutes in, looking to finish off the ace. But even if they don't, they're going to be pushing these Nexus turrets right away.
Whiplash for paiN Gaming. Incredible game in game 1, but PSG not playing around in this game 2. Maple getting the better in the 1v1. Azhi better in the 1v1. But not quite enough in the tank to finish it here. PSG playing with that diligence and respect. They were upset once. Do not want it to happen again. So perhaps one more play. 12K gold lead. It's only no soul point for paiN. This is about as insurmountable as it can get.
Yeah, the only thing that paiN is holding on to, or would be able to hold on to, is that they're so far away. PSG is so far away from soul point, but it doesn't matter when you're 13,000 gold down, resetting once again onto the map, have already broken the bot inhibitor, so can move either towards Baron, but most likely just retake that red buff area, choke out vision where you see those 3 wards from paiN being placed. PSG is going to move in as a team, clear those. If paiN is ever next to them, PSG is going to snap engage, especially with the Skarner.
Through the wall,
yeah,
into the wall. There's the snap engage as predicted. We've seen that exact engage twice this game, I want to say. And this time the ulti catching Kuri. Mid animation as he goes back, so support out of the game. G2 stepping up here. JunJia immediate flash in, tries to find the knockback. G2 living for a brief extra moment, but they're going to need to block with everything they've got. Have to be careful of the curtain call as well. So many things to take into account, but G2 still alive. Maple, though, finally joining the fight. The damage from the Akali is good. Cariok giving his life just to get his team out.
Now will not have Smite as they take the red buff on the way out. Surely they're willing to take Baron now. Yes.
Let's see.
All right, 25-44 is when they started.
And
it's
they're
still a really
and they're
slow
12,000 gold ahead, just to put this in context.
10 seconds. Okay, it's like a 15-second Baron, and that's without Maple. Okay, now we're 15 seconds. So it is slow. Like, you can see why they haven't done it.
They're hilariously ahead.
That was a 20-second.
Yeah, that took forever. In the context of this lead, any other AD carry with that lead, that thing dies in half the time.
It really does. In no world is PSG nervous about this game. They're going to be much more comfortable in their review here going into Game 3. I think on the side of paiN, you got to be thinking about draft at this point for Game 3 as well.
Maple waiting in the darkness.
Yeah.
I don't even think he needs to hit E anymore to kill people, which is like the one tricky part of the kit, right? Once the enemy has boots, you actually have to, like, a little bit of prediction to hit that ability. I
think in that bot lane fight, he just R'd in and just immediately Storm Surge blew him up. Doesn't need RQ, you're done.
Oh, I mean, yeah, Storm Surge Shadow Flame when you have a lead is just so gross. It's so powerful. Woody, fishing for anything. It doesn't really cost him much to just jump in, Celestial opposition. You know, not as important because he has such a massive lead. And Maple continues to threaten on side. They don't have a ton of range, they don't have a ton of poke. Although, as I said, Maple might be ready to go in.
Just thinking about it.
But the wave clear outside of paiN, not great either. Immediately, they're going to try to follow up. Nice disruption coming from JunJia. They find a shutdown initially, knocked back into 2, though. Gnar and Skarner together doing work. The beefy boys on the front line getting it done as Maple comes in to clean up. G2 going in, trying to finish on Maple. He doesn't hit the Q. Oh, he gave everything he had. One last desperation effort, and PSG, they've only got 3 creeps. But now with the bot lane coming in, they should just end it here.
Yeah, pretty respectable engage there by paiN, down this much gold, being able to get 2 kills, but that was always going to be the final outcome when they try to have that last fight. 2 Nexus turrets down, and soon to be followed by Nexus.
Nexus will fall as well. PSG striking back in Game 2 to tie the series up.
What a strange series. I hope it's not one of those series where you get that shocking Game 1 and then just 2 perma slams by PSG because
I want a banger Game 3, you know? Closer mid lane matchup, neck and neck. Cheaton maybe back on Illusion if they don't ban it away.
We got to see the pan into the PSG's huddle and the coach was going over the game. Yeah. I wish it would have panned to him just like scrolling through the patch notes and being like, oh, by the way, we have to change our draft, because that feels like what ended up happening here in Game 2. This is a modern draft for the Worlds patch as PSG bounces back.
Yep, they had it ready to go, and it worked out pretty damn well. We're going to head to a quick break. When we return, that man on your screen will be back and ready for Game 3.